Ricciardo has a lot of expectations now in his actual F1 return. With 2 races, can we give him enough justification as to where he's at? And with Horner's recent comments actually saying that he is exceeding the expectations. Expectations are pretty high for him, considering he's versing Yuki, he's going in a car that he's not very familiar with, the experience that he has, and if he does not capitalize this year, his actual thing that he quotes as a point to prove will kind of bring him nowhere. His 2 years in McLaren really shut him down, and actually going into this now half of the 2023 season, it's important that he kind of destroys Yuki in his own way. But over the first 2 races, I can quite confidently say that I think Ricciardo will actually beat Yuki Tsunoda by quite a comfortable margin, and I'll give my reasonings why. Ricciardo has now just recently came out, we're going into the Zandvoort Grand Prix, practically a day away, and I want to talk about why I think this will be a great Grand Prix for him and the Grand Prix to continue. Ricciardo is an outstanding driver. I've always thought that about him. Him in his Red Bull days versing Max, I feel like if he didn't DNF so many times in the 2018 season, he would have been the actual point scorer for Red Bull that year. He had that outstanding Monaco, but multiple other performances were just great by Daniel in that year. Pole position on Mexico, just outstanding, flat out outstanding. He recently says that he feels like himself from 10 years ago, dedicating a lot of the summer break to getting back into form and really being able to show what he can do with this car. And he already has proven it in my point. In Hungary, he went on a great strategy, really proved what he could actually do in his first race back, where all the pressure was riding on him. Yuki obviously had pressure on himself too, but with a car that's not that great, he gets himself into Q2, then gets hit on the very first lap, comes back, has an outstanding drive. Now in Belgium, in the sprint race, was outstanding. But then going into the actual second, like the full race, that race was not as great. But there were actual exceptions to that. He was on pace with Yuki Tsunoda that whole entire race. Every car was very similar on pace, so it was very hard to overtake. The AlphaTauri is not a fast car in a straight line, and they never had overtaking potential. But with him being behind, he ran a tire strategy that was not good, and still was a tenth within Yuki Tsunoda. He says that with this car, he's able to pick up the grip automatically. It's not like the McLaren to where he's struggling, he has to adjust his driving style, and there's a completely different philosophy to that car. With that car, you're taking a lot more V-shaped turns. Now Ricciardo, unlike Max in a way, Max takes a V/U-shaped turn. Ricciardo takes a more traditional line. So the AlphaTauri actually kind of works in that type of way. It doesn't really struggle going into the corner. It's getting out of the corner that it kind of struggles with, and also straight line speed. And overall, that low speed cornering isn't great on the car, but Ricciardo can adapt to that. It's not something that he has to change his driving style. He says returning to F1 is a point for him to prove. He feels like he was let down by himself in 2021 and 2022. And the fans feel that way, he feels this way. That is a normal thing. This is not the type of Ricciardo we saw throughout his whole entire career. This is a guy that competed with Max. This is a guy that beat Vettel in his first year. But with that being said, Horner is already eyeing him up for 2025 being a big contender. Now, I personally believe that contract for Perez isn't necessarily a set in stone type contract. They say the confirmation for Perez in 2024 isn't happen, but hey, let's say for some reason the teams jump up, Perez ain't getting second anymore. For some reason, this is a big maybe, Alonso and Hamilton overtake him and he goes fourth. You're gonna afford a driver in the best car to go fourth? I don't think so. I think that's where Ricciardo could step in from taking a huge leap onto Yuki Tsunoda in the season, and I think Yuki will stay within that team. I think they're going to keep these drivers. I think they're going to look to put Daniel into that 2024 seat for Perez, because I think Red Bull thinks in 2024, Mercedes, Ferrari, and possibly Aston Martin and McLaren could actually catch up to them. And I think they will as well, and they need a better driver there. Let's be honest, they need a second driver that's going to take them to that next level to actually fight for that championship and really get them into that zone. And who's that guy? It's got to be the guy that's been driving them for many years. Many engineers are excited to hear about Daniel Ricciardo back. The whole entire paddock over there at Red Bull is like, oh, I can't wait for Daniel Rick to come back. Want to get that potential out. They know exactly where to extract that car. It is something very exciting to see. Red Bull has been truly impressed, and both Helmut Marko and Horner talking about it. Now, the test that we talked about before, that was a big reason as to him getting out. And a lot of people talk about that test being a big thing, him getting onto the front row with the actual fuels being changed. He would have been on the front row. a whole bunch of big things that Perez was not able to achieve in a car that he's been driving for half a season, while Daniel Ricciardo realistically has been on the car maybe once, which was in that test. He already proved more than what I guess Perez has proven throughout the 2023 season. A rejuvenated and different Ricciardo for this season is kind of what excites me and makes me want to make this video. It's hearing him talk about saying, 6 months ago, I didn't know if I wanted to race ever again. Now he's looking to race into a couple more years, race in a top team, figure himself out a lot more in comparison to what he was doing over there in McLaren. It's a different culture and different speaking with Ricciardo. Before in McLaren, yes, he was kind of hiding those emotions. We heard that understood on the radio, as we usually do in any other team, but we did not hear that same excitement out of Ricciardo, the same smiling that he gives. The same type of guy that he has always been was a shell of himself in McLaren because he was not able to extract everything out of that car. Well, within these first 2 races, I've already seen a different rejuvenated Ricciardo that, in my opinion, gives me that confidence that when we look at this second half of the season and looking at the gaps between Yuki and Ricciardo, and in all honesty, I like Yuki. I think that Yuki deserves to be in the sport. I don't know if he's top level, and I think Ricciardo will kind of show that between the two of them. I think that the competition there won't be as tight as it's been shown within the first 2 races. I think as he continues to get more comfortable and really show his pace in his car, especially going into Monza, we know the Ricciardo Monza is a deadly thing. Mexico, that's going to be actually a pretty good track for AlphaTauri. The rest of the season really goes into driver skill, and I think that Daniel Ricciardo can pull it off and beat Yuki throughout the rest of the season and continue to exceed the expectations of Horner and maybe give him that chance of taking a Red Bull seat in 2024. Love to hear your thoughts down below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.